Joining us now, our Wednesday regular, TSN Hockey Insider from the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. It's our buddy, Mr. Darren Dreger, who joins us from Denver. How you doing, Dregs?
Doing well, fellas. I'm just watching an optional Edmonton Oilers skate here at Ball Arena in Denver. So pretty routine off day, I would say, despite what went down in game one.
Yeah, anything but routine.
Has the electricity filtered out of the arena yet, or can you still feel it?
Still get a shock
because
sitting down.
that was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think, you know what, I from a media perspective, and maybe from a fan standpoint as well, I think everybody was a little punch drunk when they left the building.
Totally.
Because of everything that went on. I mean, you know what, and I don't want to rain on the parade because more offense is more entertainment, and that's good for the sport. Plain and simple. You know, for the fringe fan out there who's just getting to know hockey, and there's still many across the United States and across the world, you know, that's not a bad look for hockey. But I can tell you that both teams, as part of their media avail, they were not happy. I mean, clearly the Edmonton Oilers weren't happy. They lost game one, as they have in every other series to this point. But even Jared Bednar and Colorado Avalanche they just weren't happy. They know that they've got to be much better as well.
We were talking off air, though. Boy, is this sport shown itself, particularly in these playoffs and maybe particularly in this series when you consider that McDavid versus McKinnon. We were just saying, I mean, this is almost the best the NHL has looked since the 80s and all the scoring.
Yeah. Yeah, and I ran into Gretzky and Eddie Olchuk last night post-game, and they're both kind of joking and laughing about how I think they played in the same game in 1985, which is the last time that many goals were produced in a conference final to that degree. But as also Gretzky noted on TNT as part of his coverage, as one of the, if not the most offensive player alive, when it comes to playoffs, you've got to play some defense. So I think game two is going to have a different look. But you're right, Matt. I mean, when you look at the star status in this series and look at the Eastern Conference final as well, I mean, there's layer of what we can expect there, starting with two top Vezina trophy caliber goalies in Vasilevsky and Shesterkin. So no shortage of star power in the final four.
I know we're not supposed to care what Americans think of our game, but you know that still can't hurt American television. I would guess ESPN is over the moon that they had that game and it's on American soil and all that. Like I still think that brings in the tide and all boats rise when America falls in love with our game, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so, Blake. Look, I mean, you know, I don't mind the odd chess match type of game, you know, a defensive battle that ends in a 3-2 or even a 2-1 game, but that's not appealing to the masses. I mean, you want to see the goals like the one that Nathan McKinnon scored where he blew by Darnell Nurse to make it 2-1. You know, Connor McDavid starting slow with Leon Draisaitl, but then Draisaitl threads the needle and he scores a beauty. You know, the game that Cale Makar played for the Colorado Avalanche, I mean, for the most part, the stars shone in that game. And this building was just buzzing because it was just punch, counter punch, right? One team would score, the other team would counter, not just minutes, but seconds later. So high octane offense is alive and well to start the series for sure.
That was the offensive side of it. Then there was the offside call or non-call, which some might find offensive, especially in the Alberta capital. Boy, Dregs, a couple of rules since we last talked to you that we got to, and we've been referencing your tweet about the kicking motion rule in Game 5 of the Battle of Alberta. What can you tell us about the offside and possession rule here going forward? Do you think last night will shake things up or at least have the rule reviewed in any way?
Well, there's always a reason to talk about potential rule tweaks, and I wouldn't doubt for a second that, you know, the NHL general managers, maybe the board of governors, and I think the board of governors meet during the Stanley Cup final, will at least want some sort of official explanation from Stephen Wacom, the director of officiating, and hockey operations is always part of those meetings, so they can discuss the video review process. But I recall vividly hearing Colin Campbell, Mike Murphy, and the hockey ops guys talk about this years ago when video review was first introduced. and them just acknowledging that, okay, but careful what you wish for, because even though the reason for the offside review was because of the egregious offside of then Matt Duchene of the Colorado Avalanche, I mean, you can't look at video review and measure it in feet. Once you have the opportunity to make the perfect call, you're going to take advantage of it with that extra reviewed process. The explanation made sense to me yesterday. And I was one of the fortunate few here who just happened to be around Stephen Walken during the intermission. I got called into the video review booth, just adjacent to the press box, with a couple of other media counterparts. And they explained in detail and showed us a variety of angles as to why they made the call and upheld the call on the ice. And it's all related to the tag up and the delayed offside. So really what you're talking about here by definition is Cale Makar dumped the puck in about 2 inches.
That's
so
right.
It's possession versus control. But the players knew it. The coaches knew it. And as soon as Kenny Holland went into that video review booth, before us, by the way, last night, he understood as soon as he saw it. So, look, I mean, is it time to relook at the definition of the rule, distinct kicking motion, possession versus control, all of that in these two areas? Yeah, I think so. But I'm not going to be bold enough to predict that they're going to rewrite the definition of those rules just because media and the general public doesn't like the outcome of the definition. At the end of the day, Stephen Walken, the National Hockey League, they believe they 100% got that call right last night.
Ray said it though, Ray, and we're all scared of Ray. So when Ray's tweeting out that they've got to rewrite him, I don't know, Dregs. Do you want to go down that road with Ray?
Oh, I will on the podcast tomorrow. And I mean, we all have opinions, right? I don't have any skin in the game, nor does Ray. He's entitled, and I think it would be fair to expect that there needs to be more conversation on it. But is it as simple as changing some of the language around a rule that makes it more clear? I don't think that does either. Like the outcome or you don't, and you either believe. I guess the challenge that I had was the interpretation again of the possession. How do we know that Cale Makar absolutely thought that through, that he knew that Nichushkin was right there, he needed to exit the zone, tag up, and go back in? And if you look at the video, you can actually see Makar looking the other way. So from the video evidence, you could build a case that Cale Makar was not thinking about the tag up, right? But yeah, and he talks about it post game and says, no, he knew exactly what he was doing on that play. So I guess the challenge that most have is, how does the NHL, in this case hockey operations, get into that and say, well, we knew what Cale Makar was thinking and he executed it perfectly? How could you possibly know that?
My biggest issues with the rule book right now are that we flip flop depending on the issue of the day, of whether or not we should read it to the letter, like actual letter, or the intent of the rule. And for instance, in that rule, it says if you make an attempt on the puck, then the linesman has to blow the whistle. And I saw Dave Jackson from ESPN now clarifying, no, but that's only if you're in an offside position, which he is not, right. But that's not in the rule. So then we're operating on intent and sort of this airy-fairiness of the rule book. So are we going by the letter or are we going by intent? And I think the spirit of this rule is to make sure that the player does not carry the puck in while his buddy is in an offside position. That's the spirit, and yet we were sort of able to fudge our way through it. So it just seems like it's unclear when we're going on intent and when we're not.
Yeah, no, and look, the fact that it happened in the Western Conference Final or a conference final absolutely elevates the intention to it. Like and the attention to it. So, again, just to circle back, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be conversation at the highest level. Maybe the owners get involved in all that, and we'll find out during the Stanley Cup final. I'm just not going to sit here and say that I expect that there will be a change. But you're right. I mean, to go back to the reference that I made to the Blake Coleman situation, you're never going to convince me that Blake Coleman, with everything that was going on, including having 220 pounds of Cody Ceci draped all over him, is purposely reaching out in an effort to kick that puck across the goal line. He's reaching out to maybe try and get a piece of the puck, control the puck, and maybe the puck redirects off his skate blade and into the net. But again, by definition, distinct kicking motion, no, not for me. But that's how finally we analyze, and hockey operations and the Department of Officiating analyzes these video review process.
And honestly, Dregs, I'm not sure we're ever going to get to perfection.
No, no league has it.
You and I are 180 degrees from where Blake is on the kicking motion, Blake Coleman, and I'm 180 degrees from you on the offside as well. As far as I'm concerned, if we want to call that secondary possession, that until your stick touches the puck, you don't have possession, so be it. I want more goals. If that leads to more goals, then great. Anyways, it's going to be a long summer on rules by the sounds of it for the National Hockey League. Let's move on to the Vancouver Canucks, because they've made some moves here in the front office on the player development side, where Daniel and Henrik Sedin are going from special advisors to the GM to actually on the ice and working even with AHL prospects. Just your read and fill us in on the details of that move as you understand them.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. And look, Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin would say the same thing. This is just a continuation of the build of the hockey operations department. When the Aquilinis brought Henrik and Daniel in, it wasn't at all surprising to anybody in that market. You guys know that. And even across the NHL, I don't think anyone was surprised. But it felt like there was an appetite to fast-track the Twins into a capacity that they're probably not ready for. And then you had the changeover with Jim Benning and Travis Green ousted, and the changes made that we all know, and the changes continue. I think that this is a solid plan. I mean, Daniel and Henrik and the hockey IQ that they bring to the Vancouver Canucks hockey operations, off the charts. Why wouldn't you want those two guys involved at all levels, specifically on the development side? I would want them as close to my American League team and my prospects as I could possibly get. There's no rush. There's no reason to fast track those two guys into a higher level. Utilize their strengths. And I think that that's exactly what the Vancouver Canucks are doing here with the Sedins.
Travis Green, we heard his name this week in connection with the Dallas Stars. What are you hearing on the former Canucks coach with these coaching vacancies?
Yeah, not much, to be fair, not specific to any one club. I think that things are developing for Travis exactly the way that he would want, and that there is interest from outside clubs. And, Dallas Stars owner Tom Ghilardi reportedly, admitted that they would have some interest in, again, going through a process with Travis Green like they would with so many other coaches. And I've heard a number of coaches' names linked to the possibility of Dallas, everyone from Paul Maurice and Pete DeBoer to Travis Green, Rick Tocchet. I know that there was communication with Rick Tocchet during the season when things weren't going well for Dallas. But Jim Nill and management and ownership want to go through a real strong interviewing experience. And I get that. And I think that other teams have reached out to Travis, but it's flying under the radar, which is exactly the way he wants it to be. A lot of it has to do, guys, and this will come as no surprise, with what's going on with Barry Trotz, right? I mean, he seems to be gumming everything up, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Barry is at a place in his life where he can take his time, and it's family first. That's the way it has to be. So he's letting the dust settle a little bit. We know he's talked to teams. We know he had the face-to-face interview with Kevin Cheveldayoff of the Winnipeg Jets, and he's connected with other clubs. But until he gets to a place of peace with his family, where he knows they're going to be comfortable in the city that maybe he thinks he's a good fit in, then he's not going to take it to the next level. And that is muddying things up a little bit. But it hasn't stopped general managers from moving forward with their process and having conversations with the variety of coaching names that are out there.
Wonderful stuff, Dregs. We'll let you get back to that optional. Thanks for this. Catch up next Wednesday, and you have at Ray tomorrow.
Yes,
we'll be listening.
We'll be listening.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, enjoy the hockey and have a great week.
Thank you. That's Darren Dreger, who joins us on Wednesdays, our TSN's Hockey Insider from the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. We used to I often remember Pierre Maguire when we'd have him on in September go, like, why are we changing all these rules year to year in the NHL? I think it's a sign of a healthy league that you're able to look at these high profile scenarios in the playoffs that have some of your fans / customers feeling whatever emotion you want to fill in there, ripped off, cheated, disappointed, whatever, to give them a full review and to look at these scenarios and to try and tweak and try and refine and try and perfect, knowing full well you're probably not going to be able to account for every scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But if in fact the kicking motion rule and if in fact the offside rule with regards to tag up and possession become case studies this summer that get studied and tweaked and refined, I commend the league for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, the worst thing would be to, no, we've got rules. That's that. Rules are rules. And, not even be willing to look at them. Because I do think kicking motion last week, I fully agree with you. Right call. There's bad rule. It's a bad rule.
Yeah.
In this case,
I think it's the same thing. It's the right call and it's a bad rule.
Except for that one clause that talks about a player attempting to gain possession, knowing a teammate is offside.
Right. That's supposed to indicate a whistle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. But that's only in the offside position versus an onside position. That's the clarification there, is that clause only kicks in if Makar is on the other side of the blue line and makes an attempt on the puck. He's on the neutral zone side of the blue line, ergo. But that's the thing. It's not, that part isn't written in. That took Dave Jackson, the former official, to say, no, that's the intent of that phrase is for if Makar is in the offside position. Okay, but that's not written there.
So that's it. Like, I mean, I'm just learning that now. I didn't hear Dave Jackson.
Yeah. So
I thought that applied.
No. So
if you make an attempt for the puck while one of your teammates is in an offside position, then that's offside. You blow it dead right there.
Right. But we've learned, refs are taught that only applies if the player is making the attempt in an offside position himself, which Makar is not. But that's not in the rule. Wow. So again, are we going by and so, like, how many times did I see on Twitter last night? But read the rule. Okay, so you want to take the rules literally. There is nowhere in that rule that says if Makar is in the offside. Mm-hmm. It took a ref to say we're taught to blow that down in this case. Okay, but that's not in the rule.
Oh, God.
So are we going by the letter of the law or are we going by the spirit of the law? Which is it?